Hey everybody, welcome back to Small Obtainable Goals. I'm Sean, and as you can see, I am alone today. My sister's had a really busy past couple weeks, and she's going to have another busy week this coming week with work. So I figured that I probably should let her enjoy her one day off and not bug her, even though I know that if I did bug her, she would, you know, easily come do a video with me. But I figure I don't want to be a burden. My brain already tells me I'm enough of one of those already. So today, I wanted to talk about anxiety, mainly because lately I've been super anxious. And as you can see, I don't really know where to look right now. So I'm kind of looking at the camera and then looking back at myself on the screen. I'm just going to look at myself on the screen like this because I feel like it's less creepy than me darting around my eyes the entire time, even though I literally just looked at the camera again. But yeah, so lately I haven't wanted to do any videos either. If I'm being totally honest, I've been super anxious lately, and that makes my depression act up. And so I get to play the fun game of, am I actually, you know, depressed right now, or am I just really anxious? And then after a while, I end up getting super tired, and I have to ask myself, do I have Lyme's disease, or is my depression acting up? So that's always a fun game to play, especially in the summer. It's like the shitty game that keeps on giving. Am I depressed or am I just sick? Or am I sick or am I depressed? It's a crappy cycle. But yeah, so even though I didn't really want to do a video today, I figured it'd be best if I did just to, I don't know, maybe there's someone out there who watches the videos and they feel a little bit better knowing that they're not alone and that sometimes even when you're doing really well, you can spiral downward too. That happens. You're not alone. Um, Even though you do feel alone. I get that because I feel alone sometimes, but you're not, and it can get better. But today we are going to be reading about anxiety from the Mayo Clinic. Again, I figured why not go for all three disorders that I have. Although I did recently unlock a new disorder thanks to my doctor, ADD. So that should be a real fun journey that I'll keep everyone updated with. Even if you don't care, I'll still keep you updated. You can always tune out. Seriously, no one can make you do anything you don't want to do. So, all right, get to the fun stuff. Experiencing anxiety is a normal way of life, and a lot of people feel it. But it's when it happens all the time and you constantly feel like you're on edge that you might have a disorder. Oh, and I should go into on the record right now stating that I am not a doctor. I am just someone who has had really bad anxiety for the better part of 2 decades. So, not a professional, but a real good practicer of anxiety. I do it every day. I dare say that I've mastered it, as you can master a disorder. Although I don't think you can do that. I'm really good at being anxious. I don't want to brag, but yeah, it's debilitating. But when it gets debilitating, that's when you might want to seek out help and, try to go find someone to talk to or medication. For me, it's both because, like I said, I'm really good at anxiety. And the main thing that really shows it off is when you start having panic attacks. And panic attacks are when you just start, there's a bunch of different symptoms, but basically it's in a matter of, seconds to minutes. You just start feeling pure terror, anxiety, you just feel anxious, scared, nervous, all those feelings all at the same time. And it sucks. And a lot of people can feel like they're having like heart attacks or, they feel like they're dying. And you really do in that moment, even though you're not going to die from it, you really feel like you're like dying or you're on the verge of a heart attack. It's awful, and it's a really, really crappy feeling. And yeah, it's just not fun. If you've had one, then you know, and if you haven't, then you're lucky. All right, so I'm going to read off some of the common signs and symptoms, and then I'm going to give some of my perspective on it as being a anxiety professional for years. And when I say anxiety professional, again, for legal reasons, I must state I am not a doctor. I am just someone who has had anxiety for over 2 decades and is just really, really good at being anxious and scared all the time. So, all right. The main one and the most popular one for everybody is feeling nervous, restless, or tense. It's really just the best way that I can describe it, and then I feel it is I constantly feel like I'm watching a suspense movie, like Uncut Gems, for instance. Couldn't finish that because I felt so anxious during it. You feel like you're on the edge of your seat and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop constantly, and you're waiting for something to go bad. Even though everything's going good, you start to think, oh my God, something bad's going to happen. And yeah, it's not fun. Having a sense of impending danger, panic, or doom. That goes into the nervousness and constantly feeling like you're, the other proverbial shoe is about to drop and you're just screwed. Doom is a really good describer of it, and you feel just constantly scared that something bad is going to happen. And one thing that I do personally is I catastrophize, which is when you think of one scenario and then you constantly expand on that. And that's something that I do so often. Like I'll leave a pen out and I won't put it in the jar that I normally leave it in. And from there, my brain will go into a downward spiral of, oh my God, I didn't leave it in the thing like I usually do. So what if the sun hits it just right and the pen explodes and then my desk catches on fire, and then from there my house catches on fire and I'm homeless and I need to go live out on the streets, or I need to go live in the woods. And if I live in the woods, what are my dogs going to do? Just random stuff like that where it's not logical at all, but because your brain is so soaked in panic, you just immediately jump to all these conclusions and you connect dots that aren't even close to being together. So you're just making everything worse around you, in your mind. But then when you actually stop, and if you think about it logically, then you go, okay, that's not really going to happen. But in the moment, you can't think like that. You're just stuck in that crappy feeling. Increased heart rate is another sign. This never really happens to me, except when I'm having panic attacks. I know that some people have it when they start to get anxious in general, like when they go to the doctor's office or stuff like that. Their heart's not racing, but their heart is pumping a little bit faster. That used to happen to me when I had bad blood pressure. I would always get nervous, and because every time they would take my blood pressure, they would go, oh, your blood pressure's too high. And then I would end up being stuck in the room for another 30 minutes, would just make me more anxious and just make my blood pressure worse. And then finally they figured out, they were like, oh, well, if we just, leave you alone for a little bit, when you get there, then usually you're fine. And yeah, it's nice when medical professionals realize that stuff. It's usually nurses and other healthcare workers. You're amazing. God bless you. Sweating. That's just normal for anyone. Whenever they get nervous, they sweat. But yeah, you can sweat a lot. I used to get super nervous about sweating, so then that would make me sweat more. And in high school, I would just literally be just covered in sweat all the time because I was so nervous that everyone would be like, oh my God, that guy's so sweaty. And that just made me more sweaty. So it was like a self fulfilling prophecy of sweating, and it sucked. Trembling, this can happen pretty easily. I think anyone can really, your nerves get on end, so your hands start shaking, or you're trying to do something, your hands start shaking. That's when sweating plays another role because your hands just, that was a nice voice crack. Your hands start shaking and then they also get sweaty. So, you're fumbling around and that just makes you more nervous because you feel like you look like an idiot, even though most of the time no one's paying attention to you in a good way. And feeling weak or tired. Yeah, that just happens all the time when you're anxious. It's because your brain is constantly running and you're usually not sleeping super well. Like there's always a meme for that. One of my favorite ones is when their person's going to sleep and they're like, oh, you want to go to sleep right now? Don't you want to remember that time you looked like an idiot in the 3rd grade? Don't you want to think about that? That usually happens with me, and I need to take something to help me sleep. If I know that I'm going to have like a really nervous night, then I'll take something beforehand so that I can fall asleep at a normal hour instead of staying up until 4 a.m. just constantly running scenarios in my head. And yeah, that's never fun. Experiencing gastrointestinal problems. This happened to me all throughout high school. I was sick all the time and I thought that I was dying. And I constantly would just feel like nauseous or my stomach would hurt whenever I had to go to school or something. But miraculously on the weekends or whenever school was canceled, I was fine. But during the school week, I just felt like I was dying. I used to mainline Pepto-Bismol, and yeah, not great, especially when you upchuck it. You just look like you're puking cotton candy. It's a striking image. You don't want to see it. I promise you that. Trouble concentrating or thinking about anything other than the present worry. Yeah, your brain shuts off. You just can only think of that one thing. You're focused on it, hyper focused on it, and you can't think of anything else, even logical stuff. Like, oh no, this pen isn't going to explode because it's never exploded before, and pens don't do that. But then you think, oh, well, what if it can? And then you get hyper fixated on it. And that's not fun. Not at all. Oh, and going back to the gastrointestinal things, I went and had a bunch of, tests done and they did a CAT scan. I had to drink this horrible stuff. I don't know what it was. I still remember it to this day. I remember what it tastes like, but I don't like talking about it. It just had it was just garbage with like a hint of orange. It is one of the worst things ever. Yeah, it's just not even fun to think about. And after all that, they just told me, "Oh no, you're fine. You're fine." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not fine because I feel like I'm dying every day, and I'm dry heaving every morning before school." And they're like, "Maybe it's just in your head." And 16-year-old me was like, fuck you. No, it's not. You're a piece of shit. And then, fast forward 5 years later and getting a real doctor to tell me, hey, you do have really bad anxiety. And I was like, oh, yeah. So, doctor, if you remember me from 20 years ago, I'm sorry. I was a dick, but I was just a kid. So, even Steven? Having difficulty controlling worry. Yeah, I think that just goes with everything else. You're just worried constantly and you can't get a grip of it. No matter what you do, you can't find your way out of the worry. Even if you think to yourself, this is really stupid. Why am I doing this? You still can't stop. Your brain just won't let you. And it sucks. I feel like I've said that a lot, but anxiety fucking sucks. So, Words to live by. Having an urge to avoid things that trigger anxiety. Yeah. I didn't go out for like 3 years because of anxiety. I just felt terrified whenever I was in large crowds of people. I have mild agoraphobia. I don't mind being around a lot of people if they don't notice me, but then if something happens and they end up like everyone notices me, I'm always worried that I'm going to do something stupid and everyone will notice me and be like, "Oh my god, look at that guy, he's a freak." And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why does he have a YouTube channel? Because I want to help people. And also, no one can see me when I'm in my office saying stupid stuff. And if you leave a comment, that's totally fine. And I will read it, and it will probably emotionally destroy me if it's bad. And if it's good, then I'll like it. Oh, another physical symptom of it, and this is one that they don't talk about in the article, but it happened with me, was it's called like the hood, but basically it's like the back of your neck all the way up to the top of your head. You just feel kind of like tingly, or you feel kind of like pressure. Um, and I've talked to doctors about it, and some of them heard it, and then others haven't. And it's weird because I like when I was first learning about anxiety and what was wrong with me, I was going on a lot of like message boards and stuff, and there are a lot of people that have it, but for some reason it's not like recognized in a lot of medical journals or something, whatever official things happen with medical stuff. So today was a pretty short video. Like I said, I've been super anxious and depressed lately, and yeah, just didn't really feel like doing it. But I know that if I, talk about it, then even if it's to just a camera, then sometimes it can get better doing that. And just in general, it can get better if you just work for it and work at it. And that's what I'm doing, just putting in the work. And that's all that you can really do. Just set small, obtainable goals and go about your life. Today, my one goal was to mow the lawn and make a video. And I did both. Did I do a good job on the lawn? Maybe not. Did I do a good job on this video? Maybe not. But I did them. So that's 2 wins in my column. And yeah. Thank you for watching Small Obtainable Goals. Hopefully this helped you in some way or another, or it can, help somebody that you know. If you're having trouble, call 988. That's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and they'll, hook you up with somebody who can help you in your local area. It's all free, so, take advantage of it. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, or don't, whatever makes you happy. I'm Sean. This is my sister, Kirsten.
I'm Kirsten.
Yeah. You've ruined it. All right. Thanks, everybody.
And cut.